All right, so the ranch is back at you again. It's been a little while. We had some death in the family rather, and kind of bummed me out for a little while. Stole some creative energy, but I'm getting over it, and we're going to be back at it, to doing what we originally had planned this year. I got a new job, so funding will continue, and we'll get some better stuff to review and more better cameras. I want something to hold my phone so I can actually show you guys stuff without having to just hold my phone constantly. But anyways, today we're looking at something a little different. We're looking at the early ZDF imported Vepr, and we're going to be talking about 90s cheap imports and how boomers with a high chance of being named Bubba did a lot of fun things to these guns, and one that I've kind of half-assed fix. It's going to get fixed for real later. It works for now, so I'm okay with it. And we're going to be looking at some of the more intricacies, whatever, of the Vepr, especially this weird early front sight thing it's got going on. That's a very weird proprietary front sight, but this thing's so long, it barely fits on the hunting cabin freezer. But back to what I was saying. The main thing you should know about these AKs, big AKs kind of in general, because I'm sure it's the same deal with 308 Segas. The M77s you might have better luck with because they're still in production and imported. But one thing you should know on any of these big bore AKs, the PSL included, the Vepr 54R, any of these battle rifle calibers, is your bolts are proprietary. Usually very, very expensive, if not impossible to find. Basically, you see this little wall right here, because the 7.62 by 51 NATO or 308 case has to be substantially thicker, or basically because the case head is thicker, the bolt has to be cut thinner. So this relief here has to be bored out more and for the bigger case head. And unfortunately, I don't know if you can tell, there is this little wall here, I got my finger on, is so thin because you have to make room here, that I hear, now I'm not seeing this, but I hear this area is a high wear area, or is basically this is what goes when the bolt goes. And essentially you are going to be experiencing probably more wear there than on a gun that was designed from the ground up for 308, like an FAL or a G3. You know, they don't use rotating bolts, but what I'm trying to say is basically the AK wasn't really designed for big bore cartridges. The Soviets had the Dragunov, and the PSL is kind of its own thrown together thing. The M77 is probably the best one of them, honestly, the way it's done, but it's got its own problems. But essentially what they have done here, because 308 has a pretty high locking pressure, I believe it's around 60,000 PSI, don't quote me, is they have turned the feeding lug, which is this one right here, into a locking lug. So they've clearanced it out and basically added this little lug here, so that way it locks up in the trunnion. Let me see if I can show you guys that. It's locking essentially into two places over here instead of just one. And then you got your locking lug over here. So you got 3 points of contact. Supposedly that's going to strengthen. Of course, it's got the RPK bulged receiver, made in Russia. But you guys can see that. Oh, sorry about the lighting. That's basically what you're getting. You're getting an RPK that has been beefed up to fire 308. It's an RPK 203, essentially. That's what it is. It's got a slant cut receiver because import laws, but I'm never getting rid of the thumb hole. I kind of like it. I don't want to spend the money for like the faux Dragunov stuff, and I don't think it looks right on a Vepr anyway. And it kind of, this wood furniture, especially the early nicer wood like this, it gives me VSS Venturez vibes. And I kind of like it. Essentially, it looks like a gigantic Venturez almost. But yeah, Another thing to know, these factory Molot magazines, and oddly enough, for a Russian factory mag, these aren't that good. These kind of suck. I have 4 of these. I believe they're 5-rounders, and I have a 110-rounder, and none of them seem to want to feed right if they are loaded to capacity. These handle 4 rounds best, and we'll get into why they don't feed right. But I have found these CS spec 25s, 20s, and 10s are excellent. These are a US-made magazine. The guy that makes them has a good thing going on. I cannot recommend these enough. These feed perfectly, and it's because when you add this extra lug to a big bore Kalashnikov, you are basically making feeding even more complicated. So essentially, this magazine has to try to do everything to get that bullet into the chamber, because there's no room for a bullet guide in a 308 because of that third locking lug. So essentially, you cannot have a bullet guide. So in order to compensate for that, you'll notice the relief, if I can see it here, on the chamber is significant. There it is. You can probably see it there. Is significantly bigger. And your magazine basically has to do way more feeding control, which needs longer feed lips, which the CS spec mags have for a good controlled feed. This is just some M80 ball, I believe. It's in here from Federal. Also, I believe this is a 1 in 12 twist bore. So you are going to have better accuracy out of this, and probably a lot of other AKs that are 1 in 12 twist 308s. You're going to have better accuracy with the 147, 150 grain M80 type ball stuff. The 165s, 168s, the heavier 180, all that stuff is probably not going to shoot as well because this has a slower twist rate than the 1 in 10 that comes standard on a lot of US and Western European 308 rifles. So that's just a thing you'll have to remember. This gun shoots about 2.5 to 2 3/4 with good ammo. With this M80, it shoots about 3. It's good enough for hunting, which is what it was essentially designed for. You got your RPK style sights with their windage adjusting drum right here. You can see how it works. You can just pull it out and let it go. And then your standard, but it only goes out to 3 because of the hunting. It's got a pretty big notch, which I don't mind for hunting use. The gas tube is actually very tight on this gun and very hard to take off. So I just left it on, and there's nothing under it anyways. It actually has no vents, which is a weird thing, these early ones. So if you look at that gas block, there is no vents. So I guess your gas is all going to vent behind the tube right there where the rear sight block is, essentially, which is fine. Just it's going to make the bolt carrier get dirty quicker, which I wish they wouldn't do that. I don't know why these early guns have these eccentricities like this, but they do. Another thing that's cool is you'll notice this is not a standard recoil spring. It's very much telescopic, like a milled AK, but also it's got a dual braided wire all the way down. So I guess they had to do that for the much heavier recoiling 7.62 NATO cartridge. So where do we get to where the Bubba had his way with this gun? Well, if I flip this over, you will see this side rail has definitely been through it. There's a mark on the receiver here and on the side rail from where Bubba, when he, in his infinite wisdom, when he knocked this rivet out, he decided, oh no, it's loose, I better bolt it to the receiver, and then for good measure, drop a chunk of weld on it to hold it in place. So yeah, that's after I did my best with a Dremel to get that weld off. It still looks like shit, and I used the Toth rivet jaw tools to crush a rivet in place properly after I got it laser bore sighted, and it looks like absolute crap, but it works. It does 0. The scope rail is parallel to the bore. I have no idea why he ever messed with it. According to the guy I bought this rifle from, he said it wouldn't 0 with his hunting scopes in the 90s, so he had to alter it, which may be very well true because a lot of stuff back then especially was not made for the height over bore like an AK will have, and he might have a point there. Either way, expect these older guns like Mac 90s, anything, this one's from 98 by the way, anything from this air. It was very cheap at the time. Don't expect a lot of it to be non-molested. I didn't really care because this gun, I was given a very good price on it because I know the guy that sold it personally. So I don't really care about that, and I could fix it. A lot of other people couldn't though, and it'll be professionally fixed. I want to have that gouge fixed and everything else where the weld was. But it's just cosmetic for now. It still works. Doesn't cause any problems, so I don't really care. You can see the Molot marking there and the bump rivet on the bulge trunnion, which helps get the bolt into battery on these more modern Russian type AKs. It's got its Molot reindeer hide sling. Very cool. These are very rare. Very soft. Feels really nice. Reindeer hide. Reminds me of like the Sako or Seiko slings from Finland, which are also reindeer hide, which very nice. I wish more people would use this material for slings. Good God, it's some soft, supple leather. But that's just some things you should know. Big bore 308 AKs or 54R AKs, 30-06, 8mm Mauser, whatever. They're cool. They're just not optimized for the big cartridges, to say. I mean, this gun was optimized for 545 by 39, 762 by 39, and 556 by 45mm, and all have a similar overall length when compared. Something like 762 by 51 or 762 by 54 rimmed, any of those cartridges are essentially going to force you to lengthen the receiver, lengthen the action, and do some things, beef up the receiver up here, which makes the whole gun harder to feed and causes all kind of other complications. But if you're in, like, the reason I got this gun is I'm never going to pay Dragunov money. I think Dragunovs are the coolest looking gun ever. I just do not believe in paying $6 to $7 grand for a rifle that was top technology in 1960 and is basically a 2-minute rifle, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly acceptable for combat use. But I'm not paying that when I can go and buy, let's just say, a Galil Ace in a 762 by 51. I can go buy a Scar H, which I've had beef with because you can't suppress, but that's a whole other thing. I could go buy, it's a 4.7. I could go buy a really, 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 really good AR-10, like an MR-762, which I'm considering doing because that's like one of my dream guns from HK. Point being, there's a lot of other stuff that shoots 308 that was designed to shoot 308, but if you really want something that kind of scratches a Dragunov itch without Dragunov prices, these are cool. They're good enough for self-defense, I'd say, or hunting, even though they're not, like I said, optimized for the cartridge. And I really like mine, and I won't ever get rid of it, because when my normie friends, whatever you want to call them, people that aren't into guns, when they hang out and they want to shoot with me, they're always like, bring out the Dragunov, bring out the Dragunov. And I know it's not a Dragunov at all, but to them it's close enough. So it makes it fun. Just like these, really weird, the factory mags are all crap and basically only will feed from 4 rounds for these 5s. But that's about it, guys. And this has just been a Vepr review. And hopefully I'll be uploading more now. I've got a little bit more time, and like I said, I got a better job, so we got more money coming in. But that'll be it for this time of Skinwalker Hidden Valley Ranch. Don't forget that ranch. It goes good on everything.